the solid ground to formalize this working group. I think it's number 5 working group, or it's working on democracy. I'm not sure which one is it, but we can formalize this working group as a main implementatory or coordinatory body. Besides this, I have also the feeling that there is the lack of the possibility for our municipal and the local partner to involve in the strategy implementation. So if we speak about the mechanism, we need to involve the municipalities, etc., etc. But you mentioned the information center of NATO and EU, which is probably one of the main implementatory agency. But you mentioned the 8 regional bureaus. I think they changed the structure, so not to focus on these agencies and these bureaus. That's my recommendation. Though those bureaus was established with the support of our Slovakian colleagues, and I think it was useful. But the information center has another vision on that. So further discussion with them, how to work on the municipal and the local level probably will be useful. Otherwise, it will not be national, and just stick with the government is not the right approach in this. We speak about the mobilization of the public opinion and the support. So that's for now, and I will draw the other recommendations, more technical, and the wording recommendations, and we'll send to Jordi and Becca. Thank you.
So thank you also for this initiative. It's really good to be today and discuss this draft. Thank you, Jordi, for working on this. It's really impressive effort, I think. I will not repeat what was said. I fully agree with our Slovakian colleague. I can tell from Romanian experience on this investigate process for the elaboration on the international defense strategies on EU and NATO. But the most important point I want to make here is to focus more on the process itself. I mean, a strategy as such is good. There are different, there could be many strategies, there were some strategies, but the process should be more inclusive. I think it's a good step to continue this process of consultation, started already by state office, if specific groups. So, governmental structures, I don't know, agencies involved, to have a separate meeting to get together to gather from their side their inputs, a separate meeting with NGOs, expert community, separate meeting with some others, journalists, for example, I mentioned here, but not only. Because at the end of the day, it's very important to have all inputs and in a, let's say, competitive way. And here I mentioned just shortly that EU global strategy, current strategy of EU, was developed in a similar way. It took around 2 years until it was finally elaborated, and it was done through an all-inclusive process, having all stakeholders involved. This is very important in the process of implementation of the strategy. Second point is that a strategy should be about what will be done, not about what should be done. So it's not about what has to be done. This is a commitment assumed by the government, by other stakeholders, non-government stakeholders maybe, but they already decided what will be done, not what we could or what might be good to do. So it is very important to have a very clear vision of what should be achieved in 2, 3 or how many years do you want to have a strategy like? The third point is to talk not solely about integration, about membership in a strategy. Because at the end of the day, there could be some more disappointment in the public opinion. But to talk more about achievements and finally about security. The role of membership in NATO, we are talking about NATO, is increasing security, guarantees security. So having the NATO presence in Georgia is one very important tool and message to promote. What's my point? To focus on future membership, but not solely on this, but on what is really important for Georgia, I mean increasing its security. And here, as it was mentioned, with Romania, with good initiatives like NATO, together with the allies are promoting it in the region, but in the eastern flank as well. But could be, Georgia could part of this and could be very well sold to people. And my last point, there could be many others, but I stop here. My last point is to specify more exactly somewhere in the strategy maybe, or at least for yourself, who are your primary stakeholders involved directly in implementation of the strategy. It is mentioned that the Commission will take ownership, yeah? And state office, I suppose, will be main supervisor of implementation, but who exactly will be the stakeholders implemented and will have these resources available? It was mentioned it's very important to have available resources. Who will be the secondary stakeholders and who will be facilitators? And here the role of journalists, media, social media, and teachers are very important, should be somewhere reflected as well. And I see here a big role for information center on NATO and EU to be mentioned separately, because the biggest problem will be on the information center, I'm pretty sure. And but also of NATO office, SNGP, of NATO CPD, and some of the key sources of funding and also resources in Georgia. Because funding resources is not easy, you'll see. When you have very good goals, it's very difficult to implement. And I will repeat my idea and my option is always to have separate strategies for EU and for NATO, because these organizations are quite different, very different, and it will be even more different in the future. You will see the developments again. Putting only one basket is much easier for Georgia, but it's not always good as a result beyond the achieve. Thank you, and good luck.
Yeah, sure. Everybody can start.
Okay, so let me first of all, well, sorry, I said introduction. Hello, I'm Katie Majijo, I'm the Director of the Information Center, who I don't know. And first of all, well, thank you very much for this very important work to experts, to the organizers. I think it is really, truly important to make the discussion as wider as possible, because I truly agree that in today's world, we really need to have a clear strategy, and I think even including the long-term aims as well as the messages, because I think me as having experience working for NGO sector and working on these issues, you as an NGO also need to have general guidelines as well, where we should be leading for, to be sure that we all kind of fall under the same strategy or work on the same direction. I'm sorry I missed the first meeting, but I would like to say that we are fully engaged and we'll be more than happy to be more actively involved. Of course, we're going to send a written comment, which I think will be much more useful, but I would like to mention a few general ideas. I also fully share part of the mentioned comments, but also I would like to add a few. Well, first, starting from the propaganda, for example, I think it is really crucial to underline that apart from addressing the propaganda, we aim at awareness raising. And at the same time, when we mention, I think that the number of supports increasing based on only one research, I think it is also important that even though it has been decreasing, I think it's still quite impressively high. And I think it is important to have that spirit that basically that having such a high support is still a big achievement, taking into consideration all existing problems. But at the same time, I fully agree with our expert, the Slovak expert, that I think maybe with target groups we could be more focused on those who are supporting, but still, let's be honest, most of the people who support the Georgia's European Atlantic integration based on their emotional support rather than the full understanding why we need it and where we are going to. So I think that this is a really important part, that to make sure that 70% or more that we have, to make sure that these people have become even more stronger supporters, So, transferring that emotional support by awareness raising and more information, but actually also delivering that information that people need to hear. There's also sometimes that we have number of meetings. Nobody can say that there was like lack of meetings, but still, I think more focusing and addressing and making it more adaptable to the target groups is very important. And apart from that, I think with the motto, I'm not sure if we need to have economy as a word in our motto with NATO integration, because basically usually we use economy, strengthening economy by Georgia's, integration towards EU. So I think more, I agree also with like prosperity, safety sounds more, much better than economy because it's already already confusing. So maybe putting economy because it's not really directly the NATO thing could be something to take into consideration.
Stability is often.
Yeah, like stability and prosperity sounds like much more NATO thing that I think we have been kind of promoting further along. With the target groups, as I started, I agree that maybe more focus should be put on those who already support and those who are undecided. And apart from that, of course, it doesn't mean there are TV programs and so on. Of course, they will be also watched by general public. But I would also mention that it's important to, even when you meet and you ask questions, like somebody supports NATO and then you ask why, they don't have an answer. So I'm just going back to my first point of that. Apart from that, I think it is important, of course, to involve Army as one of the most trusted institutions, the number 2. But here I would like to mention also the number 1, which is the church. So we wanted to know, I think it is important to see that importance, and also based on the last work that has been conducted by United Forces of NGO sector and the governmental agencies and the donor community. I think it has been clear that basically 1 or 2 messages from church and representatives of church has been having much more impact than we could even think about. So I don't know how we could include it there, if it's needed or not, but I still think we should keep it in mind and see if it's possible to involve somehow. Because I think also in mentioning them in the strategic partners, nor in the target group, it's not mentioning just Orthodox Church, but saying the religious groups, for example. Because I think it is very important also for the Muslim community to be involved, because they have been very actively interested in involved, and we have been having, and I know that also the Mikhail Foundation has been working with minorities and so on. So I think maybe thinking on that one could be also interesting. I think we could add more like also the general goal, because honestly, I think somewhere we should write more clearly that generally Georgia is striving for the membership to NATO. It should be like very clearly written that our strategy is that Georgia wants to become the member of NATO, and then that could be longer term, that could be short term, but the general idea is that, because with EU we unfortunately do not have that yet. With EU we say that we want to become more associated, we want to use and have access to more public goods and so on and so on, but we do not say that we want a membership. But with NATO it is clear, and I think it's also important because there's so many questions with MAP, with the process and so on. So at some point with the communication strategy we should have an idea how we do address that issue. I mean, it can be the longer term thing. I mean, as I mentioned, I don't know how, but I think it should be there, and it should be clear how we answer that big thing, or where we are on that process. I think I should kind of go to the end, and I fully agree with the funding thing. I mean, without money, you can have great ideas, you can have great human resources, but then you cannot do really anything because you at least need generally financial support. You can have a great media partners, but they also need some support. So I think on that context, maybe we could think of some kind of, coordination, which I really know that the government has in several stages. But maybe that's, because I think only budgetary money is a bit problematic, to be honest. So, and I think in that context, it would be really useful and important to make sure that also the donor funding and the governmental funding is kind of, and also all existing resources are kind of united. To make sure that we are going to driving the main aim that we have. The last point was about the information center. Thanks to Elena for mentioning that. Of course, the information center is more than open and more than willing to be part of very active implementation of this. But at the same time, with our regional presentation, as I mentioned, I have to thank USAID for that and District Management and Centers for Civic Engagement. because from our 8 centers, we basically moved and have now 10 partner civic engagement centers, which are providing spaces for us for free and helping us with the communication with the target groups and local media. Same thing within the Tbilisi Center. You see, we have premises which could be for sure taken into consideration and part from our side as that could be used. And apart from the 10 centers, civic engagement centers, we are planning to open. We are really keeping the existing one in Halkalaki, which the USAID doesn't have the center yet. But at the same time, we're thinking to also move up in the high mountainous regions where we have much more undecided and uninformed population that we have seen. So thinking about Mestina and also in Sredozemlje region in Dusheti. So I just wanted to say that, but at the same time, I think it's important for everyone to keep in mind these resources we have. So we can be providing the spaces, even now before having the strategy, but if you're going to the regions, just keep this in mind that we could be, arranging meetings for you, for concrete target groups, because honestly, we're missing very much the expertise, and we always need more people who are capable of providing useful information to the concrete target groups. And also, I think it would be really useful if we could use that expertise from the civil society or from the different agencies from the governmental side. Well, thank you for that. And once again, I think I missed some parts, but I don't want to take too much time. And as I said, we're more than happy to be part of it, and we'll send you the written comments. Thank you once again for this very important work.
Okay. Thanks very much. My name is Sandra, and I'm Communication Advisor through the Substantial NATO Georgia Package, working very much with MOD, and also Euro-Atlantic and other ministries. So thanks very much for having me. A couple of things. One is the title. I'm more in favour of a NATO-Georgia communication strategy or integration strategy. I don't think membership should be in the title at the moment. I think that could be a campaign within the strategy, but not in the title. But also Euro-Atlantic, to me, communication strategies means EU and NATO, so I get confused, so I really think we should say NATO. As for merging it together, I do suggest that we carry on developing the NATO-Georgia strategy separately, even though there's massive overlap. I've talked to Nick about this. Of course there's overlap, absolutely, with what EU and NATO processes are, but there's also differences. And I think we need to figure them out separately before we merge them, if you do merge them. Confidentiality is another thing. I don't necessarily think we need to publish these things online. I really don't. I think it's better to work on something everyone's happy with, including confidential and sensitive information, which might be some analysis, and then take from the final strategy a skeleton or a reduced version that you share publicly. Whether or not you put analysis in here or a review of what's working, what's not working, can be in an annex. You can have all sorts of annexes where you can elaborate extra information, because it's always good to have more analysis in the strategy. And you don't have to share all that, it can be in an annex. Okay, so just going a little bit into more detail on the audiences. I separate them out into about 4 groups, with the Georgian population, subdivided into target groups, like you said, international community and stakeholders, regional countries, by which I mean neighbours plus Russia, and then government actors, civil society, and key influencers. In terms of core goals, I agree, mobilising support is very important. It also includes informing people of the basics, obviously. And as for the sort of Georgian, amplifying deterrent effect is something that's important. And if we look at regional audiences, that includes friends and adversaries. What we are trying to do is amplify the deterrent effect of these relationships you have with NATO and other bilateral relationships. And in terms of allied support, maintaining that and also leveraging bilateral and NATO support for your defence goals. And then generating cross-government and civil society consensus. So just to be clear, I do feel that this NATO-Georgia comm strategy is sort of situated underneath a larger security and defence communication strategy. Joining NATO and getting closer to NATO is very important for the country, but it's one tool that you're using to improve security and defence. There are other tools, there are other relationships, and there's other reforms that are not all just within the NATO NATO context. And this is one tool, and that should come out in the messaging. So back to the audiences again, just to stress what our Slovak friend said. Just for retired people and older people, absolutely, if we look at Brexit, the biggest supporters for leaving the European Union were the older communities in our society, and we ignore them at our peril. It's easier to reach young people, and it's important because they're in schools, they're easy to access, they're enthusiastic, but let's not neglect our older communities. Promoting the NATO-Georgia relationship as already successful, already valuable, is something we've talked a lot about this year, and we've done a lot to actually make that happen. We've seen it with all the high-level visits, with the NATO-Georgia exercise. And government ownership of defence transformation and security with NATO support is really important in terms of sort of the narrative. So that's the Georgian audiences, managing expectations, of course, responding to propaganda, and generating consensus, and united front, really. And that's my key on all of the NATO stuff. For the regional audiences, we're looking at risk mitigation in a sense. Joining NATO, moving towards NATO, is provocative to certain people. We have to show we're still committed to defence, to peace processes, and that's part of this as well. And we're also contributing and determined to contribute to regional security, cooperation, and peaceful processes. And that's also the other side of this coin. And we're also sort of, again, the deterrence is very clearly an important aspect of this, but in a non-provocative way. And I think we managed it with MOD on NATO-Georgia exercise, did a great job there at MOD with making sure all that got out, all that collaboration with 13 allies and partners, and NATO-Georgia exercise as another exercise of fantastic cooperation and interoperability. For the stakeholders, NATO and partner audiences, I know Germany and US feel like they should be given focus, but honestly, you need to keep all NATO allies and all bilateral partners on board with this, because many of them are contributing to SNGP, to other things, and they need to know that there is progress. They need to be hearing that. We have 20 partners and allies and 35 experts for SNGP alone, and in order for us to continue our funding and for us to be here, the allies need to know that that's making a difference. So you continually, unfortunately, need to keep everyone on board. And I think we do a good job generally of that, and impressing them and leveraging their support. And the cross-government aspect is very important here, having that coordinated approach. Also local municipalities, I support what Eleanor said, and the civil society, of course. And for the motto, I love the idea of having a motto. I think it's fine. I think you can update this every year or 2 years and amend the slogan. But just to start off with a slogan, I didn't love it. I'm not sure that NATO is the guarantor exactly of all your security. I don't know if that's too much responsibility for NATO, even when you're a member. But and also the economic thing, I thought went too far as well. But okay. I think Georgia is the guarantor of its security and its defence. It's supporting NATO. From the narrative, a little bit more perhaps on the history of the deepening relationship of NATO and Georgia. Just because it was very good on monitoring and evaluation, I think we can simplify some of those, that sort of structural stuff to measure indicators. The interagency group, absolutely, and please do invite myself or NATO Liaison Office to some of those interagency group meetings. Obviously, we can bring the NATO HQ kind of perspective, absolutely help and feed into that. So please do include us there. We'll also be proposing some kind of counter-influence, counter-propaganda group that might be separate or within that. I don't know yet, but whatever you guys want. So basically, yeah, thanks. I think it's a really great initiative. I think it brings civil society and government actors closer together on these issues. Yeah, I'd love to be kept in the loop. And I'll send you all these comments by email.
Sandra, I'm just kindly ask everybody to keep it short because many of us want to make comments, so let's.
Okay.
Sorry. Leave us.
Thank you. First of all, I want to mention that the points I want to raise, most of them are already pretty covered, but still I want to agree on the messages, on the points, on the possibility of combining the two strategies on EU and NATO communication strategy, also on the size of the document as well as on the financial resources. But still I want to make special emphasis on one point. I have the impression that when we have communication with Georgian society on NATO-Georgia relations,